Hey everyone, Dane here from Moving to Canada. At the time that I'm filming this, it is 4 p.m. on Monday, March 16th. That's 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. in Montreal. And the reason that I'm making a big point about stating the time is because we are here to bring you some updates related to the coronavirus, to COVID-19, and how that's impacting Canadian immigration. There's been some big news today. But this story is developing coronavirus and the impacts on the world, but also the impacts nationally in Canada are evolving constantly. This is not a news cycle that's moving at a weekly rate or a daily rate. It's moving at an hourly rate. So at the time I'm filming this at 4 p.m. on Monday, March 16th, this information is accurate and up to date. But if you're watching this video later on, please be aware that this information may have changed by the time you're hearing this. For up-to-date information, check out our coronavirus news feed where we are posting up-to-date information. There's a link to that in the description of this video. That news feed will be kept up to date so you can always make sure that you're getting the most recent information. So, why are we bringing this video today? Well, coronavirus and the spread of coronavirus has been impacting Canada more and more in the past few days. Earlier this afternoon, Canada confirmed that we had surpassed 400 cases of coronavirus across the country, so the numbers have been going up. And because of that, the country is taking some very restrictive measures in order to try to mitigate the spread of that virus. The biggest measure that has been taken so far today, as far as immigration is concerned, is that the Canadian border is going to be closed as of Wednesday, March 18th. So that's 2 days from the time we're filming this. Wednesday, March 18th at noon, the Canadian border will be closed, and it will be closed to all non-Canadian citizens and non-permanent residents. Exempted from this are U.S. citizens who will still be able to enter, as well as certain air crews, as well as certain diplomats. If you're in one of these exceptional categories, I would suggest checking the Canadian government website before your travel, just to make sure that that hasn't changed. So the borders will be closed as of Wednesday. People have been asking how long this measure will take effect for. We don't know. We don't know. It depends on the severity of the impact of coronavirus on the Canadian public health. Depending on how the virus spreads, how intense the impact is, that will be the deciding factor in how and when this travel restriction is lifted. But at this time, I can't give you a definitive answer on that. So I'm going to go through a couple more news updates related to immigration. If there are questions that I'm not unable to answer in this video, please feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll try to come back and answer those questions within our coronavirus newsfeed. Now, I do want to make the commitment here that moving to Canada, our goal in this situation is not to speculate about things that may happen. It is to bring you a summary of the information which is factually available. Factual information, objective information, so that you can make the best decisions for you and be kept up to date on the situation. But I'm not going to speculate about answers to possible questions here. So other important things here, Canada's restricting international travel. So international flights will only be able to land at 4 airports across Canada now. That's Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary. This was also announced earlier today. If you are flying from within Canada, domestic flights, you can land at any airport as well. Flights from the US, Mexico, and certain Caribbean nations will still be able to land at other airports across Canada, but bear in mind, citizens of Mexico and citizens from Caribbean nations will not be able to enter Canada as of Wednesday. That's as part of the travel restriction that I mentioned earlier. So we have a couple of questions that we've been receiving from our community members that I'm going to try to answer for you right now. common question we've been getting, can I still use my travel visa, my study permit, my work permit to enter Canada? No. After Wednesday, you cannot. Unless you're a citizen of the US, travel visas, study permits, work permits, based on the announcement that the Canadian government made today, and that came from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, made the initial announcement, and it was followed up on by Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. Those types of status will not grant you entry to Canada. If I travel to Canada right now, what will happen to me? If you travel before that travel restriction is in place, or if you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident and you travel afterwards, you're going to go through increased screening measures at the airport, and you're also going to be asked to self-isolate once you arrive in Canada. Self-isolate for 14 days. So, some other immigration questions for those of you who've been put in precarious situations due to these restrictions. What if your travel document is going to expire and you can't travel to Canada? So an example here that we've seen is the letter of introduction for IEC participants, including working holiday participants. What we've seen is IRCC has tweeted to individuals in this situation that they should use the IRCC online web form to advise IRCC of these types of issues. If your LOI is going to expire, fill out the web form, include as much information as possible, and submit it. IRCC has encouraged that behavior, but they have not confirmed that they will issue an extension to anyone who does complete that form. So I cannot guarantee that this will result in an extension of the validity of your travel document, but it is the best thing that you can do at this time. What if your application deadline is approaching and you can't get all the documents that are required? Because let's say you can't leave your house to get a police certificate that you require. So IRCC has issued special instructions, special measures for applicants who are applying who are affected by COVID-19. We'll pop a link to those special measures in the description of this video as well, so you can refer to that for full details. But they have stated that they will not refuse an application if you cannot complete the application due to COVID-19. This includes applicants for permanent residence, and express entry is a part of that, as well as work permits, including the working holiday program, study permits, and visitor visas. If your application is due and it has a hard deadline, for example, if your express entry PR application is due next week, you should still submit your application without all the required documents, but anywhere that you don't have a required document, make sure that you submit a letter of explanation explaining the circumstances and the reasoning why you are not able to get that document. IRCC, in this case, should then give you an additional 90 days to complete missing steps in your application. Another important sidebar here, IRCC has stated that they will still be issuing biometrics request letters that state a due date of 30 days, but despite that due date stating 30 days, IRCC will allow 90 days for the submission of your biometrics. Couple last questions here. Is Canada still processing immigration applications? Yes. As of Friday, we saw a tweet from IRCC stating that they're still processing applications. They haven't issued any statements or any public advisories stating anything to the contrary. So at this point, we don't believe there are any pauses in processing. Again, this is a developing story that could change. And our invitations still being issued through Express Entry and IEC. Similarly, there has been no public statement from IRCC stating that they're going to pause invitations in either Express Entry or IEC. As recently as Friday, this past Friday, March 13th, we saw a tweet from IEC indicating that they are continuing to issue invitations as normal, and we saw some invitations issued to IEC on Friday, a small number, but there were still some issued. So they are still issuing invitations at this point. Again, we'll see if that changes in the coming days and or weeks. Great. They've also canceled many in-person immigration appointments in Canada: citizenship ceremonies, citizenship tests, refugee claimant appointments, permanent resident landing appointments. All of those things have been canceled up until at least April 13th, and possibly later than that. They'll be rescheduled at a later point. Great. So that is the information as we have it right now on all of the updates available related to COVID-19, coronavirus, and how that is impacting Canadian immigration. We will be updating our coronavirus newsfeed as new information becomes available. So if you want the most up-to-date information, check that out. The link is in the description of this video. And yeah, I guess the last thing to say, it's a stressful time out there. It is an anxious time out there for, I think, most people around the world, regardless of where you are, regardless of your circumstances. I wish you all the best. I know everybody on our team wishes you all the best. Make sure you take care of yourselves, take care of your family, take care of your neighbors, and I hope that this time isn't too challenging for those of you who are watching this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll bring you more updates as they become available.